Chapter 6, Lesson 1, Percents and Decimals. You can see our first standard here talks about solving real-world mathematical problems. What we're going to do is we'll be converting here rational numbers. We'll be converting between fractions and decimals, which you can see there. And then as we continue down, you can see we're going to use these later on to work with percent problems, to talk about markup, tax, tip, discount. So the context of today's is foundational. It's very important why we must be able to do this correctly before we move on in this chapter. When we talk about percent means out of 100. So anytime we talk about a percent, it's out of 100. A 90%, 90 out of 100. A 27%, 27 out of 100. Today, we're going to use this phrase down here in a sense, bump, bump. Notice there are two of them, bump, bump. But all that is just a different word for us to talk about moving something twice. So please write down here that we're going to move the decimal twice. That's what bump, bump means. It's literally going to take the decimal and move it 1, 2 times. We're going to go bump, bump with that decimal. The thing that you and I need to be very good at today is, do we move it to the left or to the right? Write the percent as a decimal. Again, percent means out of 100, so 66% means it's 66 out of 100, which could be read as 66 hundredths. 0.66. Notice again, we talked about moving the decimal 2 times. Everybody say 2. Did you say 2? Say 2. We move it twice. Where is the decimal in 66%? It's here at the end. Notice we want to be able to get the answer 0.66, so moving it to a decimal, move it left, bump, bump, move it twice, and there's your new decimal spot. Same thing, 2%, 2%. Don't tell me it's a bad grade. 2% is 2 out of 100. That's 2 hundredths, 0.02. 0.02, which again, we don't need to write the fraction. We can just do the bump, bump. Move the decimal twice. Don't see the decimal? Start here at the end, go bump, bump, and then I make an obnoxious decimal so that I know that my final answer is supposed to be 0.02 or 0 and 2 hundredths. Done. So same thing here when we talk about 100%. 100% as a decimal, move the decimal 2 times. Everybody say 2. If you want to say bump, bump with me, we're going to go bump, bump. And the number I see is 1.00 or just plain 1, which when we think as a fraction, 100% would be 100 out of 100, which is the same as 1. And if they give you a decimal, oh my, what's this? Well, don't panic. If you see the decimal, start here and move it 2 times. Everybody say 2. We're moving it twice. Bump, bump. Oh no, an open space. Fill in the 0. And now count carefully, especially if we're on IXL. 0, 0, 0, 2, 5. That is what that percent is as a decimal. Now again, you could have written it, looks strange, but you could have written it as 0.025 over 100. But we really don't like that. We don't want decimals in fractions. So when you have 25 thousandths over 100, we need to switch that. And that ends up, you have to multiply that, move this decimal 3 times, 1, 2, 3 on the bottom as well. So you get 25 over 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You get that fraction. So again, when you're looking at that, we don't need to write it as a fraction. It just says to write the percent as a decimal, so move it 2 times. Everybody say 2. Again, looking at this, because we're converting between fractions and decimals, or decimals and percents, or as we're going to see, percents into decimals. And we need to be able to do that with these percents, because then we're going to talk about markup or discount. A 20% discount, we need to change 20% to a decimal to work with it. The same for tax or gratuity and tips and commissions. We need to change percents to decimals. It's also useful to do the opposite, to write the decimal as a percent. Now again, today it's just 2. The number is 2. Everyone say 2. Move the decimal twice. But when we're going back to a decimal, or back, to a percent, that's how I refer to this. If I want to go back to a percent, that means I'm going to move it backwards. To me, in my terminology, from myself, Mr. Walls, that means I'm going to move it to the right. So we're going to move the decimal twice to the right. Again, going bump, bump, making an obnoxious decimal so that I can now see that we have 29%. Again, if you like it better as a fraction, we can show you that. You've got 29 hundredths. That's the decimal, so 29 over 100. 29 over 100 is what percent? It's 29% because percent is always out of 100. Wherever that decimal's at, find it, move it twice, bump, bump. 77.5%. Done. 2.5, 2.5, move the decimal 1, 2 times, yes, twice, every time. Fill in that open spot, and that gives me 250%. Something that is possible within business, not in math. We don't have enough bonus points on a test or homework to get that many percent, but you can have a 250% in real life. And again, oh my goodness, tons of numbers. Don't panic. Find the decimal and move it 2 times. Everybody say 2. Say 2. And if you want to, you can say bump, bump as you move it. And then write what you see. 0.56 or 56 hundredths of a percent. A grade you never want to get. It was very, very hard to get in my math class to get something that low because you get points for trying, but something you can get within science or biology as we look at things like that. Hey, speaking of science, on a science test, you got 85 out of 100. So it says write that score as a percent. All right, percent means out of 100. Say 100. So how many points did we get out of 100? 85 out of 100. Well, that means we have 85%. Check. Now it says to write that as a decimal, so I'll give you a choice. Do you want to write it from here? 85 hundredths as 0.85, 85 hundredths. That works. Do you want to take the percent and move the decimal twice? When we're losing the percent sign, when we're getting rid of the percent sign, the losing is how I remember to go left, bump, bump. And that's how I would know it is 0.85. Either way, 0.85, 85 hundredths is your decimal. We've got our percent, and now it says here to do it as a fraction. Well, we've got a fraction already. We already wrote it as 85 over 100, which is great, but anytime you have a fraction or a mixed number, make sure you simplify that if possible. And here you can, so we're going to take and divide both the top and the bottom by 5. Again, feel free to use a calculator if you want to and type in 85 divided by 5 into your calculator so you can get that number, or do it mentally. And then there you have your 17/20. And now you have your fraction. You've written your score as a percent, as a decimal, and as a fraction. You can do any of those, and when that tells you to do all 3 of them, make sure you do that. Ultraviolet rays, aka UV rays, reflect differently depending on the surface. You can see we've got 4 of them down here. We've got grass, sand, sea foam, the bubbles at the sea or the waterfront, and then there's water. And they've got all these different percents or decimals, percent, or a fraction. So now we need to go through and answer the question, which says how many more times more UV rays are reflected by water than by the grass. So we're going to focus on those 2. The water having a fraction, 21 over 25, and then the grass having a percent. In order to figure this out, make them both the same. And I don't care which one you choose, fraction, decimal, or percent. Since grass has a 3%, I'm going to try to go with percent. Now you could divide 21 divided by 25 with a calculator. You could do mental math or by hand rather, and put the first number, the numerator, inside and then divide out from there. Or just grab a calculator to get that decimal. Another thing you can do is, can you take 25 times something to make 100? Well, yeah. If we take 25 times 4, take the top times 4, that gives us 84 over 100, which is a decimal is 0.84, which as a percent is 84%. Now it says, how many more times is water more reflective for UV rays than grass? How many more? So we're going to take that 84% reflective divided by the grass at 3%. Just divide them on out. We get rid of the percent signs. And when you take 84 divided by 3 with a mental math or calculator, it gives you the answer 28. So when you're wondering why the sun seems so much brighter, perhaps by water, or you're squinting, or we talk about UV rays, they reflect 28 times more. To answer the question, 28 times more reflective than grass. That's why it's so much brighter there. That's why it's easier to get sunburn at the lake than it is at home or on the grass or in the yard. When we talk about percents and decimals, wherever you have them as, you can make them. Remember, percents to a decimal, we move twice. So we're talking about decimals and fractions to solve multi-step problems. So we're writing a percent as a decimal. Remember, when you lose the percent sign, you're going to move the decimal to the left. And if we're going back to a percent, back to me means right. And we always move it 2 times or twice. Move the decimal twice. That's what we're looking at. And then also solving those real world problems today.